I'd like to ask you about just understanding thinking concerning fuel subsidy. I know that there are several states have not been able to pay the minimum wage. Some states still owe salaries and pensions. But we see reports almost everywhere that governors support the president on the fuel subsidy. Some states, in their way of responding, reduce work days to 3, 2. How is Nasarawa State approaching this?
Well, first you are asking, I don't know whether the right or the wrong person. When I was the managing director of African Petroleum in the year 2001, that's when we started issue of subsidy. I have always supported removal of subsidy as a professional, as my background, because I knew there was too much fraud in it. Now, if you say governors all support it, and now you actually cap it up by saying that some states can pay salaries, some states can pay that, of course they can't. They more support it, thinking that now they will have sufficient funds to do that. You understand? So that is the reason why, but I'm not even looking at it from that angle. You know, I'm looking at the angle of the fraud. Let me give you one biggest fraud that is taking place in that area. When I was the MD of African Petroleum, Wale Tinubu was the MD of Unipetrol, Sheena Taikos was the national, and then the Total, Mobil, and the rest of that were having actually expatriates. We sat down, we were complaining that gasoline, which is petrol, we were consuming 30 million liters a day in Nigeria. We said it's not possible. And then eventually, well, I left AP, in the year 2006. By 2011, 2012, it moved to 50 million. As I'm talking to you now, NMPC just last week confirmed to us is between 65 and 70 million liters. And now that is what the government is paying. So I asked the officials of the NMPC, how are you determining this consumption? They say, well, we are determining the consumption from lifting. They are not determining the consumption from the actual
point of sale,
usage.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes, within Nigeria, they are determining it, and it's okay. That's the only way they can do that, because
after all these years,
if you have a company, and then their company has 10 petrol stations, you come and they give you 10 trucks, okay, to take to 10 petrol stations. If you take only 5 and take the remaining 5 out of the country, they have no way of confirming this. So this is the situation NMPC has. So that is the reason why, to me, I believe we have been the ones, and now it's confirmed, we have been the ones providing the subsidy for most of these other countries around us. And that is the reason why their prices were always a little bit higher than us. So that is
so one area. At the time you thought this can't be possible that we're consuming this amount of petrol.
Mm-hmm.
What was your thinking, your thought in terms of how much we actually consumed at the time?
At the time we were thinking that the maximum will be about 75%. But this was when we were somewhere around 30 million liters a day. Because remember, this deregulation started around 2003. We started that by saying, you know what, jet fuel, the airline can afford to regulate that. If not every product, jet fuel, kerosene, diesel, gasoline, everything was being subsidized in Nigeria. So we started this around 2003 and say, remove jet fuel. And then we did that. It passed. Oh, okay. Remove kerosene. I remember President Obasanjo said, no, kerosene is for the poor people. I don't agree with kerosene. So we left kerosene. Eventually, remove diesel. Diesel is rich people who are using it in their generators, people like you, always having big generators that are used. So they say, okay, go ahead with that. And then, so that's what happened. So 3 products had been subsidized, had been deregulated long time ago. So it is this gasoline. So all these trillions of naira that we are subsidizing every year that you are hearing is only on gasoline.
Even though now I'm thinking about it, I mean, the regulation and a template, we knew eventually at some point, considering how long the conversation had gone on for, that, subsidy on petrol will eventually have to go. And the fact that it was already moving on certain other areas. The question was whether or not we really thought about a long-term plan to really, take it out in such a way that the Nigerian people will not feel it. That's been the biggest question. And when you take a look at how long this conversation has been going on for, you would have thought that by now, governments, continuing governments would have thought up a plan to say, this is how we should take away subsidy, and this is what we'll be doing in the meantime. But that hasn't happened.
The truth of the matter is, from the government side, I think we didn't do a very good job, based on what you said. There were times, I will give you an example, when the president just came in around 2015. Prices of crude oil dropped to less than $30. As at that time, there was zero subsidy. Because the only reason why we are paying subsidy is because we are not refining. Okay? So if we had taken care of our refineries very well, there wouldn't have been this. In the year 2002 or so, we gave 18 licenses, DPR. I was there in Lagos. On we gave 18 licenses for private refineries. Not one of them was built. So a lot of things have happened. Government tried this, it didn't work. Tried this, it didn't work. All thinking that if we had done that, all this problem of subsidy will have been over. Look at how much the President Buhari administration spent, on fixing of the refineries. In the 8 years, he spent more money than the 19 billion that Dangote spent in building a refinery that is 1.5 times the size of all our 3 refineries combined. Our 3 refineries in Nigeria today have a total of 450,000 barrels per day. Dangote is 650,000. He spent $19 billion in building it. We spent in maintaining, not building a new one, maintaining these new refineries more than 19 billion in the 8 years. Yet, they have not been maintained.
So is it that government is helpless? They can't arrest them or let them face the music?
No.
Defaulters?
Okay, let me tell you one of the problems we face at the refineries. The refinery is actually components. Component for water, component for crude, component for this. So you have about 5 or 6 different components that constitute a refinery. The moment the government says we are going to spend $2 billion this year on a refinery. So what the government does, the $2 billion are spent. So as far as president is concerned, we have given the $2 billion. Now, when it goes to the 4 refineries, or the 3 refineries, three effective refineries that we have in Port Harcourt, Buhari, and Kaduna, then they say, okay, you now take 700 million, you now take 800 million, you now take that. By the time they take that, it goes to fix maybe, only one component out of the 4 components that are all bad. So zero work is done. These are the true realities of what is happening. And that's why none of the refineries is working. So the ideal thing will have been, take those 2 billion, forget Kaduna, forget Port Harcourt, fix Warri this year. So you finish that. Next one, you just take the remaining 3-4 billion, go and fix this one. So these are truly the problem. So we have not really managed these things well. This is just.
As some people will say, it's not exactly rocket science.
Yeah.
Well, at least the Port Harcourt refinery, we understand, they're focusing on it and they're fixing it. Now, how far they've gone is another kettle of fish.